Yes, everyone, YouTube, welcome back, I guess, right? It's MTLCanadiensTV. It's been a long time since I made a video here. I started doing Habs post-game vlogs back in 2010. Did that for a couple years, took a break, and I guess I'm back. So what I'm going to do in this video today is we're going to talk about the key additions to the roster, discuss their contracts, offensive expectations, line combinations, that sort of thing. And I'm going to lightly touch on how Marc Bergevin is slowly stockpiling the cupboard for the future as well. So let's start off with the most polarizing player. Polarizing contract, maybe? Josh Anderson, 7 years at 5.5 AAV. Bit of an overpayment? I don't know, we're going to talk about that a little later on too. We're also going to talk about Tyler Toffoli, 4 years, 4.25. And on the D-line we got Joel Edmondson, 4 years, $3.5 million per. And finally, Carey Price just may have a backup that can actually get the job done with the Jake Allen trade, with 1 year remaining at 4.35. Yet he also signed a 2-year extension of just under $3 million, which kind of works out good with Caden Primo in the pipeline and the Seattle expansion draft coming up too. So I don't know, is he going to be here very long? And I know a lot of Habs fans are hoping that this is the season, which, let's be honest, it probably will. We'll see the debut of Alexander Romanov. Now, I'm not going to go into specifics on every single player that came in and every single player on this roster, because that would make this video just far too long. So I've narrowed it down to just a few as, players to watch for this season. So today I'm only going to cover the ones that I think are, or I guess we're hoping, that are going to have the biggest impact. So this past draft, we saw Marc Bergevin make 8 picks. Now for the 2021 draft, that's right now, we got 14 picks. And it goes as follows. We got our first round pick, our second round pick, plus Tampa Bay's second round pick. In the third round, we have ours, Chicago's, Washington. In the fourth round, we have ours, Vegas, and St. Louis. In the fifth round, Montreal, Ottawa, and Philly, and picks in the 6th and 7th round. Now let's get right to it. Players to watch this season. We're going to start off with Thomas Tatar. Contract year at $4.8 million. He's looking to get a raise for sure. And what do players typically do in contract seasons? Yeah, they usually show up. Now his first year in Montreal, he set career highs in assists and points with 33 and 58 respectively. And then last year, he went ahead and did it again. Career highs in assists with 39. Career highs in points with 61. So see, he was motivated when he came to Montreal from Vegas. An abysmal 34 points that season. And now had, set career highs in 2 categories back-to-back years. Contract year, you're going to want to get paid. Whether it's with Montreal or not will remains to be seen, but gotta think, should be a pretty good year for Tatar. Now in a 56-game season, I'm probably going to say that a lot, so if you get annoyed by that, that's just too darn bad. 0.64 points per game over a career trend there. We're looking at about 36 points. Let's go with 16 goals and 20 assists. Now moving on, let's go to the most hated player on Habs Twitter, and that's Jonathan Drouin. Limited to just 27 games last year to a torn tendon in his wrist. His return just kept seeming to be pushed back and delayed, pushed back and delayed. Started off hot in his first 12 games, had 15 points, and then offensive production dried up, and then he got hurt, and then that's all we kind of saw from him. Now his production in the playoffs was actually rather well. 7 points in 10 games, 1 goal, 6 assists, plus 3. Not too bad. Now it's kind of frustrating seeing Drouin be always the whipping boy on Twitter, mainly because that's where everyone goes to complain about everything in sports, in their lives, politics, you name it. But did you know, jaded Habs fans, his 114 points in 160 games since coming to Montreal, that puts him at 0.71 points per game, and over the last 3 seasons, he's the most consistent point producer on the team. How about you're saying, Jared, he doesn't play defense? That's just too damn bad. Now for some players, you get what you get. You don't expect a guy to change, several years in his career. You don't see Phil Kessel playing defense. That dude's got a couple cups. And the frustrating part about him getting hurt is his first 2 years in Montreal, he missed just 6 games. It's pretty durable. Now, according to Cap Friendly, on their depth chart, he's slated to play with Nick Suzuki and Josh Anderson. Probably on paper, the best line on this team. I'll get into that a little while later. Now playing with Nick Suzuki, and hopefully this happens, who I'll also talk about a little later on, will he help bring Drouin back to being a 20-goal scorer like he was in 2017? Pretty doubtful, but his career 0.6 points per game translates to about 35 points this season, so let's go with about 11 goals, 24 assists. Now moving on to another player who everyone has high expectations of, and hopefully he can right the ship this year, Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Also, in a contract year, Habs brass find themselves in an interesting situation here. Now, currently slated to be the 3rd line center, a lot of people were talking about how he pretty much stole Danault's job after his performance in the playoffs. I don't really see that happening. If Danault is to be signed long-term, then we're definitely not going to see it happening. But this is the year where he's really going to need to put it together. Now, he scored just 6 goals in the 36 games he played with the Habs last year, scored 4 in the playoffs, and when being sent down to Laval, played 13 games, 1 goal, 12 assists, so it's not like the guy can't do it. But when he's up with a big club, he's playing third line, he's playing 12 and a half minutes, he's playing defensive role. Not exactly what you expect from a third overall pick. But it's funny because this is exactly how Lars Eller was introduced to the Habs lineup. It's exactly the role he was given. Again, high expectations because of that Halak trade. Didn't work out well in Montreal. He's doing quite alright in Washington. So, well, KK coming out of training camp in a top 6 role. I think it's pretty obvious that Philip Deneau is one of the most underrated two-way 200-foot centers in the league, so I just don't see it happening. Now, one area he has to improve in if he's going to even come close to taking Deneau's job is in the faceoff circle. Now, although it is a sample size, KK's number in the faceoff circle just over 44%, and Deneau's career numbers over 53%. So with KK's point per game trend, yeah, he's looking at about 8 goals, 12 to 13 assists. But let's say he's trusted a little more, gets a little more ice time, gets a little more than 1.7 minutes on the power play, that's what he was averaging last year, then we might see those numbers be pumped up a little bit. But if he's going to be playing third line, if he's going to be, reduced to a more defensive role, you can't expect more than these numbers. Now, if he does manage to take Deneau's job from him, then we might see those numbers be bumped up to about 30, but let's keep it around 20, 21 for now. Now let's move on to Josh Anderson. Now, before we start talking about how bad this deal might be, and it's Carl Alzner 2.0, I did a little digging into another previous Habs goal scorer, and let me know what you think. So let's compare his contract now to what Max Pacioretty signed in 2013-2014. Now, up until that point, Pacioretty had scored 68 goals in 246 games played, and was given a 6-year, $27 million deal. Anderson, up to this point, has scored 65 goals in 267 games played and was given a 7-year, $38.5 million deal. We all know about inflation with the free agent market, but over 7 years, the AAV going up just by $1 million, those numbers are pretty comparable, so I'll take this contract all day. Now, I'm not going to say Anderson's going to score 30 goals 4 years in a row like Max did after signing his deal. Because, come on, it's a 56-game season. We don't know when it's going to go back to 82 games. So, Cap Friendly has him slated to play with Suzuki and Jonathan Drouin, 2 young, hungry playmakers, and a guy who's looking to return to his 20-goal form. Now, even the most jaded Habs fan, and they do exist, have to think that this is the best position for Anderson. He's poised to succeed. So with Anderson's scoring trends, he's projected to score about 13 to 14 goals, 10 to 11 assists for about a max of 25 points. Now for Anderson, I'm going to go a bit further. I'm going to say minimum 15 goals, minimum 30 points. See, Columbus ranked 28th last year with 180 goals, 2.57 per game. Now Montreal, surprisingly, middle of the pack, 18th, 208 goals, 2.93 per game. Now playing with more offensively skilled players, have to think those numbers are going to be bumped up a little bit. Now let's stick with that line. Move on to Nick Suzuki. So it appears a strong rookie campaign of 13 goals and 41 points in 71 games played has already earned him a top 6 role for next season. Now the centerpiece of that Max Pacioretty trade will definitely be leaned on to kind of repeat his performance of last season. Now he and Drouin's speed and playmaking ability should be a match made in heaven for Anderson. Maybe I'm just hoping for it, but honestly, this has to, on paper, this is the best line of this team. Now, of course, I say that with absolutely no numbers to fall back on. But you got a guy given a big contract who scored 1 goal last year, question marks all around him. You have a center coming into his sophomore season that's looking to not only build on last season, but improve. And you have Habs Twitter whipping boy Jonathan Drouin, who's just trying to stay healthy. Now, to keep this video moving along, let's get to the scoring expectations. Again, small sample size, but trends see it as 10 goals, 22 assists for 32 points. And lastly, there's Tyler Toffoli. 4-year deal, 4.25 per. Being a 4-time 20-goal scorer, this might be the exact player that KK needs to actually step into this lineup and make an impact. Now, last year, KK played with just about everyone, minus Deneau and Kovalchuk. Spent most of the year playing with Yoel Armia, Nick Cousins. Guys you don't expect to tickle the twine. Now, with Toffoli, he's essentially getting a 6-foot Brendan Gallagher. Guy who's not afraid to go to the net, battle for those pucks in the corners, and makes a living scoring them greasy goals. And he's exactly what this team needs. Because, let's be honest, the only guy who does that kind of work is Brendan Gallagher. Now, currently, Cat Friendly has Toffoli playing with Kotkaniemi and Arturi Lehkonen. And if that's the case, if they, stay together for the majority of the season, you have some pretty stellar depth scoring. You're going to have guys on each line, 4 lines with 20-goal scorers. Now, come on. I know that you know that Paul Byron scored back-to-back 20-goal seasons after being claimed off waivers, right? So, offensive expectations for Toffoli, we're looking at 15 to 16 goals, 17 assists for 32 to 33 points. Now let's take a look at his contract too. I mean, his previous 3-year deal, AAV of 4.6, and the last year made 4.8. Now his current deal, 4 years at 4.25. His first deal is making 3.25. then 5.125 for the next 2 seasons, and then 3.5 in the last. That's a pretty good deal for a 4-time 20-goal scorer, won't you think? Now, in a 56-game season, I don't see anyone on this roster touching 20 goals. The only player that's expected to come close with their scoring trends is Brendan Gallagher at 18 goals. And I'm not going to get into him with this video because we all know what we're going to get with. Now, I know many hockey fans outside the Habs fan base don't really see Gallagher as a legitimate scoring threat, even though going into last year he was coming off back-to-back 30-goal seasons. And in just 59 games last year, missing 12, he still scored 22. So again, if he didn't miss those 12 games and if we had a full season, you know he's touching 30. So let's do a recap of point expectations, shall we? So we got Thomas Tatar, 16 goals, 20 assists, 36 points. Jonathan Drouin, 11 goals, 24 assists, 35 points. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, 8 goals, 13 assists, 21 points. Josh Anderson, 13 to 14 goals, 10 to 11 assists, 24 to 25 points. Nick Suzuki, 10 goals, 22 assists, 32 points. And lastly, Tyler Toffoli, 15 to 16 goals, 17 assists for 32 to 33 points. Now I must stress, these point totals are strictly based on career scoring trends. I know a lot of Habs fans will have absolutely unjustifiable expectations. Well, let's be real here. And we must remember, this is just a 56-game season, barring any future shutdowns due to COVID-19. Now, I'm sure we're all aware of the strict protocols the NHL has put in place, so we just have to hope that everyone abides by them. Yeah, so I chose not to include any of the defensemen or goalie expectations in this video, only because this video is already going on a little longer than I expected. So if you guys want me to do a defenseman and goalie expectation video, just let me know in the comment section below. But yeah, that's going to be it for today. Just let me know your expectations of some of these players coming into this season, whether it's some of the players I talked about today, or the guys on the roster that I chose not to include. Anyway, you take care, you stay safe, and go Habs Go.